Coach Elliott has talked about wanting to have a balanced offense. How would you kind of describe your philosophy as a coordinator?
Yeah, so that is a point of emphasis, and a lot gets construed with the balance part. Where, when we look back at the end of the season, we're not saying we're going to be 50% run, 50% pass, but we want to be balanced enough that if the game requires us to win the game running the football, that we're capable of doing that. And obviously, if we have to win the game throwing the ball more so, that we're still capable of doing that as well. And from a team perspective, making an emphasis of that this spring to better the whole team. So our defense has become better at the run stopping. We become better at running the football and winning situations, running the football.
Hey, Coach, Mike Barber from the Richmond Times-Dispatch. I just had a couple quick ones about Brennan Armstrong. I'm curious, how do you get to familiarize yourself with his talents? Are you watching film? What do you do to learn
Yeah.
about Brennan?
Definitely watched a lot of film, but also it's personal relationship where Brennan and I have spent some time together already. Even going out to grab a bite to eat, just getting to know each other on a personal level. We believe in just developing relationships with our players. Obviously, he has a high skill set as a quarterback in the ACC, so very excited about him coming back to play with us for the 2022 season.
And if I could follow that up with just two quick things, what kind of input can he give you in terms of what he's comfortable with, and how as a coach
Yeah.
do you tend to?
No, I mean,
if
let's
you can also
certainly.
tell me where you guys ate.
So, oh no problem. But when we look back at it, like Virginia last year and then the years past have done a really, really good job of throwing the football. And obviously, Brendan's been a big part of that. So our job as coaches is try to mesh some of the things that Brendan has had success with what terminology wise, and try to restrict his learning curve offensively. So a lot of conversations going through a pass concept like, hey, what did you call this? And so it can match. So again, trying to limit his learning curve so that he can be the best player he could possibly be running the offense for us.
And where'd you eat?
Oh, he had us go to Burton's Grill here in town, which is pretty good. Good steak. Yeah. Yeah.
Coach 2J likes that place. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
Hey, Coach, Greg Medea from the Daily Progress. Kind of along the lines what Mike was asking you about Brennan, but with your staff, what kind of input do you take from your staff members as you're starting to put together this offense? And I guess just what's that process like overall?
Yeah. So we just completed on the road recruiting, so we're very limited in joining together as a staff and talking ball and watching some cut ups and those type things. So been really focused on that here the past going back to last week and through this week. But it's open dialogue. I tell them all the time I don't have all the answers. And 5 brains are better than one. So it's a collective group, and Coach Elliott's involved with that as well. And putting together the best product we can to help us win games next year.
And I guess just in terms of leaving the NFL for this job,
Yeah.
What led you to that decision? And then what things do you want to bring with you
Yeah.
that you learned with the Atlanta Falcons to UVA?
Yeah, and that's a good question because I really enjoy the NFL for a lot of reasons, but, that's kind of everybody's trying to compete at the highest level in the profession, and that was one of those opportunities to go and compete coaching in the NFL. And in this whole profession, it's relationships, right? And the people that you come into contact with throughout your career. And Tony and I have crossed paths probably 16 years ago and had remained in communication with each other and obviously competing against each other during my time at North Carolina State and at Clemson. And there was conversations that, if I were to get a job or he were to get a job, depending on how things unfolded in our careers, that we wanted to be able to work together. And so when this opportunity came about, there's very few, if many people, that I would have left the NFL to come back to college and work with. And one of those guys is Tony Elliott. So just from a personal relationship, obviously to come and help him build the program the way that he sees it, and relationship-based, the student-athlete really matters. And believing in that approach, we can put together a good product on the field to win here at UVA.
Thank you.
Hey, Coach, I'll
Yeah.
jump in here. Preston Will with CBS 19. Just looking at the guys that you have coming back this year on offense, you got a unique mix. Obviously, you have a good starting point with
Yeah.
Brendan at quarterback, but you got guys like Keaton Thompson, Billy Kemp, Dontavian Wicks. What do you kind of make of this initial look at this roster and the kind of the weapons that you have out there?
Well, we're very talented on the perimeter, offensively. With the receiver skill and KT, whatever he plays, right? He's a football player, so and being able to utilize his skill set in multiple ways. The thing, and I know Coach Elliott has alluded to this as well, but we're also excited to see what do we really have in the running back room. And in the spring, I think there's some talent. I do believe there's some talent there, and these guys get an opportunity to show us this spring what they're capable of. And Coach Tujay will continue to develop the offensive line to help us protect Brandon and be able to run the football. But obviously, at first glance, it speaks volumes with the production that the receivers have had here in the past couple of years that coincide with Brandon. So excited about that.
You mentioned Keaton, obviously. Are y'all planning to do a lot of different things with him, just like the last half?
Yeah, the best we can fit it because, again, he's been productive, right? He's a productive guy catching the football, and anybody can help us score points. It's our responsibility to get them on the field in multiple ways to do that.
Hey, Des, this is
Yeah.
Jerry Ratcliffe, JerryRatcliffe.com.
Yes.
Having a guy like Brennan coming back, what does that allow you to do with the offense you foresee that maybe you couldn't do with somebody less experienced than you?
Yeah, but at the same time, I think you have to be a little cautious in that. And, that's part of Brendan and I and Coach Elliott getting to learn each other and, not just saying, oh, man, we got Brendan, let's just go, right? But obviously he's shown the ability to do a lot of things. And that's what's really exciting about this time of the year right now. And just feeling like as a coach, like you feel confident, hey, this guy has won games with the ball in his hands and just having that comfort knowing going out there that whatever game plan or how we put this together, he can go execute it. And then from there, we can build on from that.
And if I could follow up, who's been the biggest influence on you in terms of offensive philosophy throughout your career?
Yeah, I've been fortunate to be around multiple guys that have had successful offensive careers. Going back to my days at Furman and the coaches that I either played for or coached with in that time, and then working with Coach Tom O'Brien at North Carolina State when Dana Bible was the offensive coordinator, having a West Coast influence type offense with that, to being at the Air Force Academy with Troy Calhoun. And we still talk continuously, even though I haven't worked with him in 11 years. But, Coach Calhoun was the guy that was the offensive coordinator at Wake Forest when they kind of got rolling there with Coach Grove, and obviously been in the NFL as offensive coordinator. So very, very smart coach as well. North Carolina State, Matt Canada, with some of the jet sweep type things that he implemented. In that time we were at North Carolina State and being able to run the ball very effectively. And that's the thing that Coach Elliott and I have talked about over the years. Obviously, he's had a lot of success, and that's one of the unique things about him. There's a lot of guys that are head coaches that are presenting a vision of what they want to try to accomplish in their programs, but he's a guy that's actually done it, as an offensive coordinator, winning the national championship. So his expertise combined with some of my influences, even to recently here with Arthur Smith in Atlanta, who's another sharp guy, offensive mind. And now Coach Elliott and I get to work together and mesh those into one.
Guys, this is David Teal, also with the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Take us back, if you will, 16 years ago to Furman and your first crossing paths with Tony Elliott. What was that like?
So actually kind of somewhat maybe go back to, I believe it was 2006 or 7. I had got offered a job at Western Michigan as a receivers coach coming from Furman. And Coach Bobby Lamb was in the process of hiring a replacement for me, and it ended up becoming Tony Elliott. So back at that time, your cell phones, you had to leave that cell phone and number with the university. So my cell phone became Tony's cell phone. All right. And to this day, he still has the same number. Like I know his Greenville cell phone number by heart because it used to be my cell phone. So, in that transition, there were people that was calling his cell phone thinking that I still had the number, and he would call me back like, hey, Des, such and such trying to reach out to you. So that's kind of how it all started. And then obviously being an alum at Furman, you come back to certain events, and he's there as a coach, and you start establishing more of a relationship. And then, in 2010 at Vanderbilt, Furman was making a change, and the defensive coordinator at the time at Vanderbilt, Bruce Fowler, was getting the job at Furman. And he asked me, is there anyone that I know on that staff, because he couldn't keep everybody at Furman, but he wanted to know if there's anyone he should consider keeping on that staff. And the first name I told him was Tony Elliott. And obviously Coach Fowler had wanted me to come at that time to be his offensive coordinator. So there was an opportunity that Tony and I could get a chance to work together then. But he got an opportunity to go to Clemson shortly thereafter. I decided to go to the Air Force Academy with Coach Calhoun as opposed to going back to Furman. So fast forward to now, and that's where we are currently.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey Des, Damon Dillman from Cavs Corner. I was just wondering what the process is like of actually, you talked about like with Brennan, for instance, going out to eat with him, getting to know him on a personal level, but what is the process like, especially now that you guys are back in the office more, of watching film and getting to know what these guys bring to the table on the field?
Yeah, so the way we kind of set up the day right now is in the mornings, it's all about player development, recruiting. So our players are currently working out with Coach Smo in the weight room in the morning. So as a coaching staff, we're either down there watching them and evaluating the guys, because we got to get to know these players as well. So it gives us a great opportunity to be around these kids and see them work in the weight room or in the indoor doing conditioning drills, and just standing there watching them. And then recruiting, like that's also a part of this collegiate model, right? We got to be able to recruit guys continuously, and it's a daily event. So, like this morning, we met as offensive staff, started about 9:30 and went to lunch, just watching film of kids across whatever region, Southeast Virginia, and spreading out with different position groups. And it gives us a chance, again, to dialogue and know, hey, here's what I'm looking for in a receiver. Coach Hagan's, all right, what are the key things you're looking for in a receiver? Coach Elliott's in there with us, and we're all kind of meshing together, understanding how we all view and see prospects and how they fit the vision that we see offensively moving forward for the Cavaliers. So, and we're doing that with each position group. Coach 2J, hey, yeah, man, we really like this offensive lineman. He's got good length. He's explosive off the ball. He's athletic. He's playing basketball. Like, what are these intangibles about this kid, academically, personality-wise? So a lot of that dialogue is happening, and we do that every morning, where we spend time with our players, all right, and then follow up academically with those guys to recruiting evaluations, and then after lunch, we'll set aside time to start getting into the offense. And it could be watching some cut-ups from the Falcons, cut-ups from Clemson, cut-ups from UVA, and things they've done, and then meshing it all together.
Hey, Des, this is Jeff White again. You are also the tight ends coach. This program has had a couple really productive tight ends the last 2 years, in Tony Poljan and then Woods last season. How do you consider the tight end a prominent part of your offense? What's your philosophy as far as
Yes,
does it depend on talent?
Well, if you can go back even farther in the history of Virginia, and there's been a strong history of tight end play here. And if you look at Coach Ellis and our background, have both coached the tight end position at some point in our careers. Like, we value that position. And particularly the skill set that we have on the perimeters now, if we have us a tight end that can take advantage of the middle of the field or create a one-on-one on the backside of a 3-by-1 formation, that just only makes us tougher to defend. And hopefully eliminate some double teams on one of our wideouts or whatever. So we value that position. We're going to recruit that position every year. And again, just like the running backs, like, who's the next guy up in the tight end room now that Jelani has departed? So that's another point of emphasis this spring as well.
Des, I'm curious, with the offensive coaches who were retained, Biscuit, Coach Higgins and Coach 2J,
Yeah.
did you know either of them well coming in? And what's been the process? Are they helping you kind of get
Yeah.
to know your players since they've been here?
Yeah, certainly. So, unfortunately, in this profession, right, if you coach long enough, you're probably going to be a part of a coaching change. In my career, I've been a part of 2 coaching changes, actually 3. One where I was not retained at Vanderbilt, another one at North Carolina State when I was retained, and then at South Carolina with Coach Muschamp, and I was retained with Coach Beamer. So I understand, like, that whole process of being a guy that's retained with the new staff. And I told him that, like, you're here because, one, to go back, did I know Coach Higgins before? We've crossed paths in recruiting. He recruited down in South Carolina some. Actually, one of my good friends was at a high school that Lavelle Davis is from, and he spoke highly of Coach Higgins from his interactions of Coach Higgins recruiting Lavelle. But then when you talk with people and you cross-check them with other colleagues in the profession, and everybody's saying the same thing, you're getting a consistent message. Yeah, man, Des, you're going to like this guy. He's sharp. He's a low-ego guy. He's a hard worker. He busts his tail recruiting. Just like in this process with Coach 2J, unsolicited, but I'm having a conversation with Coach Mike Bobo, who he and I worked together. Obviously, he was going through a transition from Auburn, and just talking. And he's like, hey, I want to tell you, the guy that you guys are keeping, the O-line coach, he's like, I really liked him. He said, when he was recruiting my son, Drew, I sat in on a couple of his Zoom meetings, had really good energy, very sharp, very detailed. So it just confirms what Coach Elliott, who was actually here on grounds, seeing Coach 2J in action at practice and spending time with him, like, those things speaks volumes. So for us, it was a no-brainer for both Coach 2J and Coach Higgins to be on our staff.
Awesome. And this is not a criticism, because I know you've been busy, but
Yeah.
that office looks pretty undecorated.
And it is pretty undecorated. So we have, and it will probably remain this way until my wife gets up here. But I don't spend a lot of time in here. Truthfully, we have an offensive staff room. I spend a lot of time in there. So, yes. So to answer that.
Thank you, Coach.
Yeah, no problem.
Greg Medea again from the Daily Progress. Just curious on the recruiting side of it.
Yes.
What are you looking for when you recruit quarterbacks for your offense?
Yeah, so the things that should pop off the film, right? Does the guy have velocity in throwing the football? Can he move? And we talk about the quarterback having the ability to get us 3, 4, maybe even 5 first downs a game with his legs. Now, does that mean he has to be a 4-4 Lamar Jackson kind of guy? No. He just has to be athletic and mobile enough that he can extend plays and create a first down for us if things break down. So you like to see that, on the film. Again, how does the ball come out of his hand? Does he throw with a good base? Is he fundamentally clean? Or if not, if there's some things that we can correct with him when we get him. So initially from the film, all right, is he a winner? He may throw for 5,000 yards, but his high school team is 3-8. Like, we want to be able to recruit guys that has a history of winning as well to go along with that. And that's just from the film. And then you obviously want to get to know these guys very personal and kind of how they think, can they process information, leadership skills. Like, is this a guy that in the locker room they want to be around in the locker room? Because I lived that life before where it was around a quarterback that the players in the locker room didn't like. That's not good. All right, that's not good when you think, okay, here's the guy going out to lead us, but the other guys on the sideline really don't care for him. That's not good. So.
Hey, Preston Willie again. You mentioned Lavelle earlier. I guess you had a pretty good idea of him before. I know you've gotten to watch workouts and stuff like that. How is he looking, now nearly a year off from his last ACL injury?
He's moving along pretty well in what he's been doing. And like you said, Lavelle was a guy that I was trying to get us to consider at North Carolina State, knowing that he had a big upside. And obviously when he came here as a freshman, had a great year, and we're excited about what he can do moving forward. The thing about Lavelle, he's a tough kid, tough-minded. He's a worker, so we expect him to fully recover from that ACL.
And then real quickly, you talked about 2J too earlier. Just that offensive line and rebuilding that. How key is that for this offense this year?
Yeah, it's very important. Didn't know that we would have, unfortunately, with this transfer portal, the guys that decided to leave. But again, another credit, Coach 2J, right? He went to work and bust his butt, and being able to acquire us some guys in our benefit with this transfer portal, which is not something that we want to focus on, because we want to build our roster, as we say, through the draft through high school guys. But this year is unique, where we have to try to supplement with the transfer portal, and some of the guys that we've targeted in that group on the offensive line that we've been able to get to come here, and there's maybe hopefully a couple more if necessary. But I'm excited to get on the field, get on the grass with Coach 2J. He has a lot of great energy in the room. Players speak highly of him. I've been out with him on the road recruiting, having conversations, philosophical, personal, different things like that. So really excited about working with him.
Des, having been running backs coach with the Falcons, what do you demand from your running backs, and what are you looking for this spring out of the guys that you inherit?
Yeah, so one of the things we even talk about as an offense, but our identity to play fast and physical. And fast is not necessarily a speed thing, but just being fundamentally sound, a smart player, tough player, but the physical piece of it. And that's across the board, from the receivers, O-line, tight ends, running backs, to just be a physical team for 4 quarters. But from the running back perspective, like what I'm looking for from these guys, can they consistently make plays for us, both with the football and without? Well, what is that without the football? Are you a good pass protector? Are you a guy that's hustling down the field to get a block to free a receiver and different things like that? So it's all of it together.
And as along those lines, you had a lot of success at NC State with backs such as Hines and Days and Knight, who were effective catching the ball out of the backfield. How big a part of the offense can that be, and would you want it to be?
Well, again, that's another part of the evaluation of the guys that are currently here. I just know moving forward in our recruiting, that is a big piece with the running back position. Does he showcase the ability to catch the football? All right. Now, there is a food chain, right? And that's being honest. So it's going to start from the outside in and throwing this football around. Like, these receivers have proven themselves that they're going to get the touches, and then if we can supplement that through the tight end room or through the running back room, because they have taken away, the vertical down the field passing game, then yes, we want to be able to make sure we have a guy that can capitalize on those situations.
It does. Last one for me, Mike in Richmond again. You mentioned, you've been part of different locker rooms, different staff changes. Tony, Coach Elliott's talked about the importance of recruiting the locker room.
Correct.
Keeping as you have through spring, after spring, so you don't deal with more attrition. What have you learned in your career? What is the key to recruiting your current players?
Be yourself. Again, it goes back to relationships, and part of the reason why I would like to think we're all in coaching is to develop young men, and also being competitive in doing that, right? It's like the guys that can't play anymore, you go into coaching because it's the closest thing to that. But it's also about developing men, because someone poured themselves into me as a high school player, or even at college. Like, Furman was such a huge influence on me and my career personally and professionally, and just want to be able to do the same thing for someone else. And I enjoy the locker room. Like, I enjoy being around the guys and learning from them, and they can learn from me. And just, if that's the intent of it, then I think that eliminates, the quote-unquote guys wanting to leave, because we're open and transparent communication, no deception with that. So, what you see is what you're going to get. And sometimes it's going to be the hard truth, but it's out of respect and love for you, not to try to deceive you.
And how important is a guy like Brennan in kind of keeping that locker room together and recruiting his own teammates? Yeah,
Brennan, and there's some other guys on his team that I've been impressed with, just kind of seeing how they interact in the weight room, and their actions and just desires and passions going by it. Coach Smo is doing a great job in kind of establishing that culture as Coach Elliott wants it, to move along forward. But yes, Brendan's a key piece. You know, a couple weeks ago when he announced that he's coming back, you don't think everybody in that locker room was excited? I know we were, you know, with that. So yes, that's a key piece of it with Brendan. So.
Awesome. Thank you.